Welcome back, team, on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, today, folks, let's talk a little bit about shame. I know you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? That this was organizationally related. Well, everything is related. Everything and every dot is connected some way or another, isn't it? If you take the level of shame, it's pretty obvious to think, well, and we can probably go back to our youth and go, okay, there was a thing I said, thing I did, right, that I feel bad about and that I have shame for, right? But this can also tread into adult life where people can feel levels of shame for things they do and things they say and things they do in the work environment, in organizational culture. Leaders cutting their teeth, um, leaning too far forward over their skis, saying some things that uh, may be harsh, it may be hurtful, maybe all kinds of things, right? Can lead to a level of them feeling some shame later. Even if it's small levels of shame. Same thing for the team at large, depending on how you developed and in what setting that took place in. Uh, there's even team members, right, rebelling just slightly against the leadership or management, kind of in the us versus them mode, might have said and done some things that they felt shame about later as well. Where the difficulty lies, though, is not in making a mistake of saying or doing something. Obviously, that's not good, and we need to rectify those things. But and we can't be apologists for bad behavior. But we got to reach back and go, all right, what happens when people do or say or do shameful things? What is the reaction? Is the reaction to double down on it, where pride and ego take control, pull people into their shadow a little bit and say, well, they did this, I'm justified, so I can say these things, right? To give people permission to act shamefully, really, right? Speak and act shamefully. And how does that come about? Well, it can come about when, like I said, you feel justified because of the way you were treated. You might have been treated shamefully, right? And then turn right around and act shamefully in response to it. So it's its own virus. And so that's where the shamefulness, right, can be kind of an insidious thing, as so many things are. So when you dive back into the the shame of things, the shame of a situation, though, and you see where you've doubled down on it, if that has been a compounding so that over time it becomes more a behavior trait, this person's always rude, this person's always abrupt, this person's always a thing. Now, it's one thing when it's in the moment, you're trying to figure something out, you lean over your skis a little bit, and then you have to say, oh, sorry, team, I got a little, spun up, It's not about you, it's about me. How easy is that, to do, to own stuff. And you find when people own the things that they do that maybe created a level of shame in others, and then, of course, shaming themselves. And I think that's another reason why so many scenarios that go left unchecked, right? So it's not, shame is such that if it's externally observed and brought to somebody's attention, there's a decision point there. Do you own the words or the acts of shamefulness that you made somebody feel, or do you double down? And do you double down? And does your ego and pride kick in and go, well, no, I was right? I mean, both can be true. It can be true that you were right about the subject, but wrong about the behavior, right? So it can be kind of a tricky deal. You can even go into another circle of this too, is in the level of development and training. So leaders, supervisors, managers, even team members, who aren't adequately trained, don't really have a knowledge or concept of group dynamics, forming, storming, norming, performing, and so many different tools, right? These are tools that we use to what? Understand each other better. The 80-20 rule, same way. These aren't tools that we should be using to judge people and say, oh, well, you're the worst, and oh, you're the this, right? It's to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing now. Now, how do I delve into that and in a healthy way to build cooperation and collaboration with my team? Not to say, oh, wow, this is what's going on, right? Because what you don't want to do is, identify a thing and have people running scared into doubling down on their behaviors if they're negative. Why is that? It just compounds the shame. You may have brought it to light, and they may double down right on it. And what are some other ways that this shame can be manifest? It can be manifest in passive aggressive behaviors. So if this really, there's such a gauge, or I should say, a variance between extrovert and introvert, right? The introvert's not going to likely be demonstrative and over the top about a reaction to a being made to feel shame about a thing, or not knowing a thing, or not up to speed on a thing, or feeling bad because they're not up to speed or in the know or capable about a thing. They're probably not going to be demonstrative, but they may be passive aggressive, right? So, oh, I didn't get the thing. I didn't do the thing. It's just a little bit of letting off the gas pedal. All of a sudden, you notice that your team's productivity drops, and you're not sure why. And like to overuse the word again, insidious. And like in an insidious game of whack-a-mole, you're not sure why you have these random acts of what you might be putting in the light of incompetence, or lack of attentiveness, or a lack of professionalism, or lack of any sort. It might be a reaction, a passive aggressive reaction, team wide, because of the way that the team was treated, or so this is having an awareness about this allows you to talk openly with your team about the idea and concepts around shame, because shame didn't start in an organization. It probably started with how people were raised. If the parents were really harsh, if the kid growing up was treated harshly, or expected to do or know or understand, or this sort of thing. And then if you have the introverted young person and an extroverted group of adults around them, they may be intimidated. They may feel shame because they're not like them, right? To feel different. So people that feel different can feel shame because they're not understanding why they're different, or why they feel different, or all these things, right? So there's a complexity, that you can worm into with this. Carl Jung, talking about the shadow, it seems to me that when people double down in their ego and pride to say, no, it's about me being right in this situation, it's about this, it's about that, and we've all been there. We've all felt justified to say, no, I did the right thing, I followed the right steps, perhaps. But it's also true, that can also be true, like I said earlier, that how we respond to these things can also be a determining factor of shame. And I think shame is such a subjective thing in so many ways, because I don't think many people walk around going, I can't even fathom this. Maybe put in the comments if you are aware of such things, but I can't fathom the concept of somebody walking around going, well, let me see if I can make somebody feel ashamed today, right? I guess the on the lighthearted scale, I think of practical jokes. It's not passive. It's almost like the allowable passive aggressiveness, right? It's like, I'm going to do a practical joke, and then, or you and a group of coworkers or something, you're going to practical joke another coworker, something like that. And, harmless fun, nothing unsafe or hurtful. But to a very light degree, you kind of made fun of that person. And if that person has a sense of humor, everybody has a good laugh, right? And those are good things. Those aren't unhealthy things. And it's a good way to let off a little steam and just kind of play around, without being harmful. But if you pull the fun out of that and then you say, all right, here's passive aggressiveness and it's not a practical joke. I want you to feel bad about a thing, or I want you to, feel embarrassed, right? About a thing or whatever, then you might, that might be more in the line of being set up. Let me fix my thing here. My little fidgets, they're holding it in the same spot for a long time. Okay, better? Sorry. Apologies. High tech as we are. I want this to be a conversation between friends, and so I'm so as you can tell, I could care less about the formality, right? Just like you should care very little about the formality of having open discussions, open, honest, and healthy discussions about a lot of the behaviors that are in and around shame. Because talking about these things can help free some people that maybe feel like, well, I've kind of felt bad because of this, because I don't necessarily always feel like I can keep up with you guys, and you know what? That's a beautiful thing. If somebody can say that and you can say, no, you're doing a great job. Oh, you do? I didn't know you felt that way. No, you're great. You're right. It's good to have these open, honest, and aired out conversations, because then you can reinforce how valued your team members are and how just truly treasured your team is. Even when we can get caught up in the fervor of trying to, go to help the customer. Of course we get in those modes, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't slow down at times to acknowledge the team and to show appreciation and to make them feel how treasured they are and appreciated, that can help to kind of reverse this wheel of shame. And I believe that a lot of team members stay on with teams because, let's face it, maybe it's the healthiest thing they have going on in their lives. They may have very difficult personal lives at home. I've seen very a vast array and number of very polished professionals. And I pride myself on being pretty intuitive but also sensitive about how people feel and what, the possibilities are behind situations. But I've seen very polished professional people, and I can see the pain. I can see that they're, sometimes we can put on a lot of polish in our way and in our manner in all these things to maybe kind of gloss over the difficulties we're dealing with. And it is true. We have to juggle the things we have to juggle to figure out our personal lives and figure out our professional lives and to figure out all kinds of aspects of life, right? So it isn't to say that you aren't polished and a professional, but it is to say that it's okay to just breathe easy and to say, I'm just going through some things, and it is what it is, and I'm figuring my way through it. Because you may be trying to heal a personal situation while you're trying to lead and manage or direct and supervise and be a member of a team. So it doesn't help you to swallow it into a place where it's just gonna sit like a coal burning in your gut. That's not good for you, and it's not good for your team, really. And if you're a team member, it's not good for you, your peers, anybody. It's definitely not helping the customer. We know that. But ultimately, what good is it to press on through to help the customer if our team members feel awful? That's just not a good thing. So, we want to uplift our teams, but we also all have to recognize within each of us that we can't double down on our pride and ego, because then what happens is then we justify our behaviors, right? When we get into that justification, like, well, I did the thing to push past it, right? To push past, maybe having exacerbated or made something worse to make a team member feel shame, right? Because again, like I said, I don't think, I'd be surprised if anybody said, yeah, I walk around looking for opportunities to make people feel ashamed. I don't think so. I think it happens by accident. I think it happens when we're not thinking, right? We're not fully thinking things through. or maybe we're not realizing a certain thing. And I think, too, that the reaction to that shame can also be just as shameful, as I kind of touched on earlier. If somebody feels, ashamed or feel bad about something, um, the correct behavior isn't to turn around and go, well, I'll show you. Vengeance is never justified, right? If anything, let's air it out in conversation and communication, not by taking some ill will or ill acts toward other people or saying things about them. And, it can take on so many forms, or hurting the customer, because you don't like the ownership or the management, because you didn't speak up, because you didn't own how you felt, because again, they may not have meant to do or say and all these things. And if they did, you're going to figure it out pretty quick in conversation. How is that? Well, it doesn't matter if we're talking about ownership, leadership, or the team member. If a person or a group doubles down on ego and pride, not to be sensitive and open to it, and have a little empathy toward, how you feel, and then that might be a thing, and it might be a trend. And if it's a trend in an organization, then it's an area where organizations can take time to clean up how they communicate, how they deal with one another, and instead of looping back around. The only way to get through and to heal the shame is to, first of all, own how you feel about a thing, right? And that's a brave thing. You have to own it. And when you do, and then when you do, then you're freed to that. You're freed to that. Now, if others use that that honesty, your openness, and your vulnerability against you, well, guess what? They've just inherited the shame. And now that shame is like you're free from it because you've owned it. And even if you're the one who owned having created a shameful situation, if you've owned it, then you move on. Right? This is where forgiveness is so huge. You've owned it, moved on. If others don't acknowledge that and forgive that, well, guess what? Well, now they've just got the hot potato of shame, because the act of judgment is also a shameful one. And then that act also now builds upon in those who double down on pride, not to forgive and not to acknowledge. You see how these loops work? And it really is he, she, or whoever forgives first wins, owns their stuff, wins, has open, vulnerable acknowledgement about their team and their communication and what's going on, wins. You want your whole team to win. So this is why you want to open up your communication. This is why you don't want shame to exist. You don't want people to feel bad because they don't feel like they're up to speed in an area. And if they are, they're like, hey, I feel like I'm up to speed in an area. Can I get some training? That's the measures that we take. We do these things. Hey, can you work with me and teach me how this? Absolutely. I love those things. I love those things where somebody says, hey, I don't really get this. And I'll be like, you know what? I'm pretty good at it, but I know so-and-so is really good at it. Let's link you up with those, get you linked up with them, and then you're going to be the expert. I'm like, I'm really pretty good at it, but they're the expert. We know who your experts are, right? In certain areas. And this is how you can really grow a healthy team. You can really just see, it's like planting flowers and just walk away and then just keep that good energy going, right? You want that. You do not want people to feel shame. It's a detriment to your organization. It's a detriment to your customers, but just as bad as all of that, it's a detriment to the individuals who are members of your team, and you want your team to be great. So, all right, folks, hit that good domino 3 to 5 times a day to uplift, inspire, motivate, and just encourage one another. And we do that, we're transforming culture and we're transforming others' lives. And in doing so, we're transforming our own lives. And that's a great thing. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Hit like, share, and subscribe. Take care. Have a great day.